What's going on, people? It's your boy Daryl here from the Boxing Lowdown, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Mr. Laurie Lyle, for the episode 33 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast, man. The delayed Boxing Lowdown podcast. And you know how we do it, man, every week. Delighted once again to be joined by Laurie. Laurie, man, a few people were saying yesterday that you were furloughed, and they were like, where's Laurie? And all of that. They thought I ditched you, man, but you're here.
Oh, you had the B-Tech Laurie on yesterday, eh? No. Shout out to Ade, man. I actually watched your show. It was great viewing, man.
Your show,
you and him worked really well. You know what I mean? So I'm actually talking myself out of a job here, but yeah, I really enjoyed your interactions, man. And it was good to see Ade just letting it rip. So it seems I'm not the only one that has a problem with Tyson Fury. You know what I mean? I think Ade's worse than me.
Yeah, he was going in on Tyson Fury.
He was going in. Yeah, and quite rightly too, man. I like I said on your show the other week, I think a lot of people now are growing just tired of that old act, man.
Yeah,
tired of it, man. You know what I mean? There was smoke and mirrors. You know what I mean? I think people have had enough, man. You know what I mean? And this latest calamity in which he disgraced himself is doing nothing to curry favor with the fans.
Well,
you know what I
mean?
Before
we go in there, what's that behind you, man?
That's a tribute to my boy, man. That's a man who walked undisputed, man. Walked into town, man, and just told the Mexicans, look, what's up? You keep talking about tough Mexicans. I'm a tough Scotsman, and I'm here to take over, and that's exactly what he did, man. Enough respect to Josh Taylor.
We're going to get into it, man. Guys, you know how we do it every single week. It's live. We stream live on YouTube and Twitter every week, our podcast, man. And already I see comments. We'll go through the comments as we do. And, you know, we're going to chop it up as we always do, man. I'm expecting some hard opinions tonight, as always. We're on, again, like I said, a bit later this week. We're on a Friday. We're on a Friday evening. So you guys that are in the chat, you guys watching at home, just grab a drink, relax, and let's talk some boxing, man. We're going to get right into it. First of all, Ian Hamilton, my bro, man. This guy has been supporting from day dot. He's put 2 pods in 1 week. What more could I ask for? Let's go, man. Let's talk about Taylor and his fantastic achievement. Conrad Boxing in the chat, as always showing love, always repping. Big up Conrad, man. He's here. IB has put, I'll call this episode Return of the King. Laurie is back.
It's like 2 kings, man. 2 kings. You know what I mean? Actually 3. Me, you, and Josh at the back there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
I was thinking Ian Hamilton, that name sounds very Scottish. I wonder if he's a Scotsman. No doubt he'll let us know. But it sounds very Scottish. Even the way he spells Ian. That looks very Scottish to me. But
he does look Scottish. I think he does live in Scotland, yeah. Or he did live in I think it was Middlesbrough, but I think he lives in Scotland now, actually. I think he might have Scottish blood in him.
Yeah, he must do. When he spells his name like that, with the I-A-I-N, and of course his name's Hamilton, you think, yeah, man, he must have some Scots blood in him somewhere. But I'm sure he'll let us know.
22B's putting salute. People are joining the chat already, man. Guys, as you know, just hit that like button as always. Share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You know what? I think I checked my subscriber count before the show, and it was on 799. If I can get 800 by the end of the show, man, that would be great. So let's cook, man. Let's
smash the like button the way Josh Taylor smashed Ramirez last week. Come on, people.
Let's talk about it. You're Josh Taylor's #1 fan now, aren't you?
You know what? I'm going to say something now, and I think you kind of alluded to it yesterday when you was talking to Ade, and you said, listen, my early encounters or first time sort of coming across Josh Taylor, I mean, I've been watching him in the amateurs, but seeing him develop as a person online, I wasn't too enthused. He came across as a bit too sort of, how do I put it? Not the most media friendly of people anyway. But I must admit, man, I've kind of grown to really like him because he's very sort of an irate, irascible type of guy. But it works in boxing, you know what I mean? And he backs it up, man. And then when someone's backing it up like that, you can't really fault them, can you? And it's interesting because I was watching the lead into the fight last week, and I was curious to see some of the American sort of TV and media people. They're talking about Josh Taylor, and they were saying things like, "Oh, he looks rattled. Look at the way he's reacting. This guy looks like he's going off his head. He's not composed." I was thinking to myself, you lot clearly don't know anything about Josh Taylor, man, because this is what this guy's like. In fact, I'd have been surprised if he wasn't acting like that. You know what I mean? And they were like, "Oh, he's clearly lost his head. He's rattled. Ramirez is in his head." No, you know what I mean? I was thinking the opposite is the case, man. If anyone's acting out of character, it's Ramirez. You know what I mean? I don't throw too much stall on that type of stuff anyway. But there was no way that anybody, you know, don't you, Daryl? Anybody that's watched his fights will know that in fight week especially, this guy, you know what I mean? He does get in people's faces. He does act pretty aggressively. And that's how he is. So when they were saying things like that, I saw Timothy Bradley and he was saying, "Oh, he looks like he's not handling things very well. You know what I mean? He's exploding. That's not good." I was thinking, may not be good for you, Tim, but this is a totally different character. And it takes all types of characters in this sport. You know what I mean? He was kind of like, the only other fighter I could kind of compare it to is like Jamel Charlo's like that, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
And I've noticed that George Kambosos is quite a fiery guy as well.
Well, Crawford can get like that.
Yeah, Crawford can get like that, but he's not as demonstrative as Taylor is with it. I think with Crawford, it's kind of simmering under the surface, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you, but Josh Taylor was actually going looking for work. My mum was out there in the hotel lobbies confronting people, you know what I mean? And even when he was being asked questions by the media, like he was snapping on man, you know what I mean? I was like, wow, he must be terrible to be around on fight week, man, you know what I mean? But I do like it though, you know what I mean? And like you said, and like I said earlier, he backs it up, man. And once someone's doing that, you can't really argue with it, can you? Really?
He's like the opposite of Joseph Parker, isn't he?
Oh, God, man, no. One's a true fighting man. The other one's just blessed with athletic ability, I think. I think that's the difference there. You know what I mean?
Go to the comment here. Ian Hamilton has put here, "Love that, Laurie. Yes, I live in Scotland now. I'm from Newcastle, but I work in Scotland. Plus, I have loads of friends from there. My dad is Irish, though, and my mum's grandparents are Scottish." So there you go. A bit of a mix there that clarifies the name for you a little bit. Kieran Rogers, my bro in the chat, he's put, "I want to know what he said as he stood over him after the second knockdown. You know he ran his mouth." And Conrad has said here, "Kind of sad that only a few hardcore fans seem to celebrate Taylor's victory." And DS in the chat, he's put, "Happy bank holiday, gents. Happy bank holiday to you as well, bro." Let's talk about the fight, man. Let's talk about it because I know
I just want to say one thing as well. It was interesting that, isn't it funny that Josh Taylor went from a Scotsman to a British fighter almost overnight, isn't it?
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Oh man, the man was like pure Scottish before. Now he's won the title and he's undisputed and on the pound for pound listings. All of a sudden, the media here are creating him as a sort of recreating him as a British fighter. But hey, I guess he is. So, but that was interesting.
Let's talk about the actual fight, man. Like I said, you had a lot to say about it to me afterwards, off camera. I know we spoke a lot of things about the actual fight itself, the ref, the scorecards. You know, like, well, how did you see that fight? I mean, I did go through it yesterday, so it's really, I mean, you can let the people know what you thought about it. You know, your thoughts on the actual fight, how it went. Was it as close as you thought it was as the judges had it on the scorecards? And your thoughts on the performance of Kenny Bayless?
Right. I think I'll leave the Kenny Bayless one till last. It's only right that we should leave him till last because, you know, I mean, he was an absolute disgrace. But in terms of the fight, listen, I, being the boxing nerd that I am, I stayed up late to watch it and I knew it was going to be close and competitive. And so I decided that I would score it as I went along because obviously I knew that I'm going to be coming on your show and I need to try and justify what I say to you regarding the fight. So I scored it as I went along. I just want to say it was a great fight. Credit to both fighters. Ramirez as well. I mean, listen, man, it takes two to tango. And, you know, he played his part in what was a tremendous fight. It lived up to the pre-fight billing and expectation. So I just want to applaud both guys for that. I think, well, let me start by saying I had it 115, 112. Some of the rounds were close. And some of the rounds, I think that you could have given to Ramirez on work rate, the fact that he was pressing and making the fight. Although I always felt that the greater quality predominantly was coming from Taylor. And his ring generalship, for me, it was evident that he was the classier of the two fighters. And some of the work he was doing, some of the countering off the ropes and stuff like that was superb, man. He looked a sharper fighter. He did get clipped a couple of times. I think maybe one time he did look a bit buzzed. Not
He
sure.
got hurt. He got hurt with a few body shots.
Yeah. He looked like he was wincing in there a little bit. But, that was a testament to how competitive the fight was. And Ramirez, you got to give the man credit, man. He was hurt a few times himself. Well, he got dropped. And after the considerable amount of help that he had from Kenny Bayless, he managed to get back into the fight. But yeah, I always had Taylor out in front, man. But I think Ramirez did win the last couple of rounds, which kind of narrowed the gap. And I think he won those. My theory as to why he may have won those was, obviously desperation. He must have known he was behind. And I got the impression, because I saw Josh Taylor looking up at the clock a couple of times. It looked to me like Josh was trying to wind down the clock a little bit, and he's got to be careful of that in future fights. I don't know what Ben Davison was saying to him in the corner, but it would appear from the sort of approach he was adopting in closing out the championship rounds is that he felt, I've got the knockdowns in the bag. I've done the better work. I'm ahead on the cards. As long as I don't get caught with anything silly, I should win. So I think that was the approach he took. And when you do that, it can be a bit risky because you may give up rounds that may, cost you should the fight go the distance and it's a close fight. So I think the narrowness of the scorecards kind of reflected that approach that he took. But personally, I always thought he was in control. I thought he landed the better shots. As I said before, I thought his ring generalship was superior. He looked like he had the greater power. And of course, he scored those two knockdowns, one of which should have been a knockout, because no one's going to tell me, man, that count was conducted in keeping with boxing principles. He was on the floor for at least 10 seconds. Some people are saying it was 20 plus. You know what I mean? I saw Ade on your show yesterday, man. He was as outraged as I was. It was ridiculous. One of the worst refereeing displays I've ever seen. And I agree wholeheartedly with Ade yesterday when he was saying it's probably less to do with incompetence and more to do with corruption. And I know that's quite a controversial thing to say, but how else do you assess that, man? I mean, Kenny Bayless is not a junior referee. He's an A-class referee. He's been around years. For him to be that incompetent in a fight of this magnitude, it kind of is very suspicious to me, man. It really is.
I thought he was terrible. There were times during the fight where after the knockdown, I don't know if it was the first or second one, Josh Taylor was literally looking to go to Ramirez and Bayless is holding him off. And Josh Taylor's like, he's got his arms up like, what are you doing?
Yes.
I thought he was very professional throughout because he could have lost his head during those moments there. Bayless threatening to take away a point and like Taylor looking to finish the job and like Bayless getting in the middle. I saw that. I think that was his experience there over the amateur and pros, just to keep a level head and keep his mind on the job, because other fighters I know would have lost it. I think that's how bad I think Kenny Bayless was. I thought he was terrible.
I mean, you know what? I've just been talking about incompetence, but I'm just thinking back to something I was thinking on the night, because I was literally shouting at the TV. My neighbors must think I'm mad, because obviously that fight's in the early hours of the morning, and I'm shouting at the TV, shouting expletives at Kenny Bayless. The neighbors must have thought, what's up with that guy? But anyway, like, I noticed as well, he would not let them fight inside enough. You know what I mean? Which was probably to the detriment of Ramirez. You know what I mean? So it was just an all-round terrible display of refereeing, man, which threatened at times to get in the way of what was developing to be a great fight.
What do you think about the holding? Josh Taylor did a bit of holding there. It's quite a smart tactic, what some would say, but I think it was bordering on maybe that was why Bayless. I think it was bordering on the, where you would have to break it up, where Josh Taylor would land a combination, kind of fall in and not allow Ramirez the space to work up close. He'd kind of like lean in and like just hold on to him. Do you think that was repetitive?
Tactic? I think that's a tactic. And you're taught in boxing that if someone does that to you, if you're the aggressor and you're the person fighting inside, what they tell you is you take a half a step back. You don't smother your work. So when the guy's trying to hold you, that's when you can do some effective work. by taking that half step back and readjusting, which Ramirez wasn't doing. So listen, you could argue that Taylor's tactics of holding incessantly did prevent Ramirez from doing some good work. But again, that's down to the referee to oversee that as well. I don't think that was a massive factor, to be honest. I didn't think so.
You don't think there was a bit of holding in there? You know,
yeah, I saw some holding, but I didn't think it was over the top, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was too busy enjoying the fight. But
great fight.
No, I wouldn't have said that made a whole lot of difference. I mean, I know the Ramirez camp were drawing attention to that first knockdown. They were saying that Taylor hit him just after they clinched. But again, protect yourself at all times.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was a great counter shot. Was it the second? It was the second.
No, that was the second knockdown. The first one was when Ramirez kind of walked into it when Taylor
that was a superb counter. See, this is what I'm saying about ring generalship. The way he performed that move was to perfection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was on the ropes. He countered and dropped him heavily. You know what I mean? That was a superb shot. Superbly timed shot.
Yeah. I think what we were saying yesterday and what I can say again today is that despite how some people had the scorecards, I've seen people in here say they had it 114, 112. You said you had it 115, 112. Conrad said he had it 7-5 in rounds and then 2 extra points from the knockdowns. I think that the main thing we can take is that the right guy won at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, some people were saying that had it not have been for the knockdowns, it could have been a lot closer. I heard some of Ramirez's camp saying, had it have been for the knockdowns, it could have been a draw. But hey, listen, you could easily say, had it not been for Kenny Bayless, he would have got knocked out. You know what I mean? Because he was definitely in serious trouble, especially in that second knockdown. He looked like he was out of there, you know what I mean? And the referee gave him so long to recover. It was ridiculous. And then the other thing you've got to look at as well is that obviously knockdowns change the course of a fight. So Josh Taylor would be aware that he's got those 2 knockdowns and he can re-strategize accordingly. It means he doesn't have to go chasing anymore because he got those in the bank. So I'm not really sure that this sort of hypothetical, where if it wasn't for the 2 knockdowns, Ramirez would have won. No, he got knocked down twice and they weren't lucky shots, were they? They were beautifully timed shots, both of them. And not that I think that there's no such thing in my book as a lucky knockdown anyway. People mean to throw the punches. You're only lucky if you don't mean to throw the punch. And he certainly meant to throw those punches. So, yeah, I'm not having that. But listen, credit to Ramirez. He fought his heart out. It's just that the better man won. And like you said, you can argue the toss about the scorecards, but at the end of the day, as long as the right man won, then really that's what we want, isn't it? So, yeah. But credit to both men, man. It was a great fight.
Go to some comments here. Bump of K has put here, even in rounds 3 to 5, when Ramirez came on strong, Josh still landed nice body shots. And Kieran Rogers has said here, the first knockdown was a peach of a punch. Let's talk about the aftermath of this fight, because as soon as the fight finished, obviously Taylor's elated. He's undisputed, you know, the king of 140 pounds. A mic is shoved in his face. You know, the lights are on. Everyone's saying, oh, what next? What next? I'm hearing Crawford, then possibly Teofimo Lopez. Obviously, there may be a defense against Jack Catterall, a homecoming in Scotland, maybe. What would you like to see next for Josh Taylor, man? Because there was talk about him going up to 147 to challenge Terrence Crawford. What do you think of that?
I think if I'm Josh Taylor and I'm in his camp and I'm advising him, which obviously I'm not, but if I was, I'd be saying to him, listen, man, that run you're on at the moment, it's an incredible run. You've done it the hard way. I think the combined record
85 or no, something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. He's really, what he's done there is a tremendous achievement, and he deserves a homecoming fight. And no disrespect to Jack Catterall, but he probably deserves somebody that, you know what I mean, he would be favored to beat. It's only what happens in boxing. So rather than go after Crawford, which I don't think would be a good strategic move, and with Lopez, that's not going to happen, even though Bob Arum has talked that up. But I don't see that happening just now anyway. And let's face it, Lopez has got a hard fight coming up himself against Kambosos that he really does need to focus on that one first. But anyway, to go back to Josh Taylor, if I was him, homecoming fight, England versus Scotland, Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall. It's a fight that I would expect Taylor to come through with ease, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that really is a mere homecoming.
Yeah, but exactly. That's what he wants after going out there and winning all the belts in such an impressive fashion, would be to have a relatively easier fight. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but relatively easier fight that would still attract a lot of interest and make a lot of money in the British Isles. So yeah, that would be the fight that I would pursue if I was in his brains trust, which of course I'm not.
Yeah. Bumper K said here, Lopez ain't going to beat Kambosos. 5-1, huge value. So
listen, man, I like the look of Kambosos, man. I like the look of him. I'm not saying he's going to win, man, but it would not surprise me if he was to pull it off. The guy, he looks good, he sounds good, and he's got the right attitude going into this fight. A bit like what Josh Taylor did at the weekend.
Let's talk about, I asked Ade this question yesterday. I'm going to ask you the same thing. South of 147 pounds. So anyone at 140 or maybe even below. Can you see anyone beating Josh Taylor at 140? When you look at some of the names that are out there still, there is the likes of, Teofimo Lopez, maybe if he moved up. Gervonta Davis is fighting Barrios next month. Maybe you might have, I don't know, Regis Prograis rematch. Is there anyone at 140 that could beat Josh Taylor right now?
Well, what I would say is that Josh Taylor is definitely the top dog right now. But, let's be honest, man, the Regis Prograis fight was a close fight. Some people even thought that Regis did enough to, retain his title by way of a draw. So does Josh Taylor really want that again straight away? The Lopez fight, as I said, I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
Mikey Garcia.
I'd fancy him against Mikey Garcia. I've not been too impressed with Mikey Garcia recently. He didn't look that good in his last fight. He was sounding
welterweight anyway, really. No.
And that's a good point. I'm not even sure if he's got the discipline to get down to 140 anymore. And he's not fought for a while, has he? He was one of those who was trying to wait for the Pacquiao fight. And obviously he didn't get that fight. So his career at the moment is in a bit of a quandary, I would imagine. Mikey Garcia. And Mikey Garcia, and I've said this on your show before, he strikes me as a fighter that is not wholly in love with the game, if you see what I mean. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to be in the gym all the time if he's not fighting. He doesn't seem to be, he's pursued the Manny Pacquiao fight, but he doesn't seem to be wanting to fight regularly, you know what I mean? And looking at his career. Sorry?
Has he got a fight coming up?
Well, he's talking about getting back in the ring soon. He keeps making that statement, but, there's been no announcements of dates of opponents. So he's been saying this type of thing for a long time. As I said, he was pursuing the Manny Pacquiao fight. At one point, he was being favored to get it. But, of course, we now know that Pacquiao is now fighting Errol Spence. So he's not going to get that fight. And his last couple fights, Jesse Vargas, let's be honest, man, he did not look at all impressive in that fight. And I think he got a knockdown, which pretty much swung the fight in his favor, didn't it? It was very close, both before and after that knockdown. So, and against Errol Spence, he was soundly beaten. So at this stage in his career, I wouldn't give him too much of a chance against Josh Taylor, to be honest. I think Josh Taylor would be too much for him. I'm not saying Josh Taylor would stop him or knock him out, but I think he would beat him quite clearly on points.
What about Gervonta Davis?
Gervonta Davis, now, that could be an interesting fight. I mean, Gervonta Davis has stepped up to 140. He's got a very difficult fight coming up against Mario Barrios, I think it is. But Gervonta, to be honest, man, he looks small for 140. I mean, this guy he's fighting as well, Barrios, I think he's about 5'11", 6 foot. So he would be about the same size as Josh Taylor. And a lot of people are saying it's going to be a very hard night for Gervonta. But we'll see how he gets on in that fight before we even start to mention him in the same breath as Josh Taylor, to be honest. Yeah. I think Josh Taylor has proved himself without any shadow of a doubt as the number one undisputed top dog in that 140 division right now. He will have to make a decision as to whether he stays in this division or whether he'll make the move further north to 147. And even if he does that, I would imagine that he probably won't go straight into a fight with somebody like Terrence Crawford, although he's called Crawford out. I would imagine he'll probably look to do it the proper way, grow into the weight, maybe have a fight or two before he starts seeking out those challenges at 147.
Yeah. Ian Hamilton has said here, from a biased perspective, I want Catterall, just as it's in Scotland, and I can go to it. Lopez for me, just for the build-up and talking. Bob would prefer Crawford, just it's an in-house one, and he loves those. The real captain has put here, big up AFTV Laurie.
Big up.
Last thing on Josh Taylor before we go onto our next topic. I saw the Ring magazine have ranked Josh Taylor at number 5. And like I said, these are all mythical rankings, the pound for pound rankings. It's all subjective. It's all really down to what you prefer. But what was your thoughts on that? Josh Taylor, top 5, is not misplaced there? Is that a pretty fair assessment? Not for you?
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, he's definitely in the shake-up for pound. I'm not sure if I'd have, as I said, I've got Crawford as my number 1. And until he gets beaten or somebody does something that I think, wow, they on that performance, they deserve to be elevated above him, then I'll still have Crawford as my number 1. So Josh Taylor, tremendous achievement in achieving Undisputed, but I wouldn't quite have him there yet. But he's definitely in the shake-up. He's definitely in the argument for pound, without a doubt. Because once you achieve things like that, go Undisputed. I mean, Jamel Charlo's another one. If he beats Castano in his fight coming up, he's got to be in the shake-up as well.
Has to be, even though he's not cracked the Ring ranking. So I just think that's funny. But again, it's all subjective, isn't it?
Listen, those Ring rankings, man, that the Ring magazine organization has been severely compromised the minute Oscar De La Hoya bought them out. So I don't really take them too seriously.
Their credibility is starting to go out the window. Did you see after
it went out the window for me years ago? You know what I mean?
You see after the Billy Joe Saunders fight, somebody from that account tweeted something about Saunders quitting. I was like, I don't know. It was just very like what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
It was just they have lost a bit, man. It has lost a bit, and it's a shame.
And they're all tied up in that sort of Mexican bias, Canelo, and all that type of stuff. I don't take it. It's a shame because when I was growing up, man, I used to.
It really was the Bible of boxing back then. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to buy that magazine religiously. But now, you know, I mean, when you understand the dynamics and the politics of what's going on with that magazine, to me, they've lost all respect. You know what I mean? It's just a magazine run by certain people for certain people. So, you know what I mean? Makes no odds to me at all, man. I ignore them.
Let's move on to your boy Little Errol, man, because last week during the weigh-in at Taylor Ramirez, man, we was all talking about it. You know, Taylor was getting in everyone's face. There was the scuffle by the elevator. Then all of a sudden, Manny Pacquiao dropped an Instagram picture, a fight poster of him and Errol Spence. No, I don't think there was a caption on there, but he literally just dropped it out of the blue. And then all of a sudden, the internet went crazy. I went on live to speak about it. Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao confirmed for August. And what do you think, man? Your boy Little Errol, he's got the bag.
It's not Little Errol, man. It's Lil Errol. Get it right. No, but listen, you know what? I'm going to say this, and, you know, I might sound slightly controversial and out of kilter with what a lot of people are thinking, but it's just my thoughts. I'm not as excited by this fight as a lot of people are. I say you are, you know what I mean? I mean, listen, it's a good fight. Don't get me wrong. And I'm pleased that it's been made because Lil Errol's been out the ring for way too long. He had that very good win against Danny Garcia, but he's not been fighting regularly recently. He's had problems outside the ring. Hopefully he's addressing those. He had the fight with Danny Garcia. I thought he performed very creditably, but he still needs work. And obviously I'd like to see him in with Crawford. That would be the fight that would excite me. That would be the one that would get my juices going. This fight is a good fight, but come on, man. Manny's what, 40 odd years old now? 42. Yes, he had a good win against Thurman, but even in the Thurman fight, that was very close. Could have gone either way, really. Again, that was a fight that was decided by a knockdown, pretty much. So Errol Spence should beat this version of Manny Pacquiao. Although Manny Pacquiao, it has to be said, and yourself and Ade was making the point yesterday on your show, he's an all-time great 8-weight world champion, started off as a flyweight, gone through the ranks, Some would say rather dubiously, but anyway. Manny Pacquiao is a great fighter, but I don't know, man. I'm not blown away by this fight, to be honest with you. I expect Errol Spence to win. Really, if he's on top of his game, he should be looking to get Pacquiao out of there before the end of the 12th. Whether he will or not, though, is a different matter. I expect Spence to win, but this fight does come with pitfalls. You know what I mean? Because I'm already seeing it online. It looks like the whole world wants Pacquiao to win. You know what I mean? Including you. I've only got to see some of the interviews with boxers and ex-boxers and trainers and all the rest of it. And they're saying, oh, if Manny wins this fight, this will be the greatest achievement of all time. And that will surely prove that he's the greatest of that era, better than Floyd and all the rest of it. So I guess what I'm saying is, man, there's a hell of a lot of sentiment going into this fight that Errol Spence needs to be careful of, because if he allows this fight to go to the cards and it's even reasonably competitive, trust me, he could lose this fight. I could see a couple of the judges just voting for Manny on sentiment. And I don't know where they're going to fight yet, but let's be honest, man, wherever that fight is held, right, outside of Spence's hometown of Dallas, wherever that fight is held, I would imagine that the majority of the fans in there are going to be rooting on Manny. And you know what boxing's like, Daryl? Just a little half jab lands, the crowd are going to erupt. You know what I mean? It's going to be Manny. Yeah, and then, like I said, the sentiment. This is Manny Pacquiao, Senator Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? One of boxing's royalty. So all you've got to do is land a couple of jabs, or you know what I mean, one decent punch in the round. Oh, I think Manny got that round for me. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? There are pitfalls there for Errol Spence, man. I mean, I'm sure he's elated at getting the fight. It's a high-profile fight. It's a big money fight. But there are pitfalls. And then the other thing I'm going to say, again, some people will regard this as slightly controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. I just hope that there's Olympic-style drug testing for this fight, because anybody who knows anything about the history of Manny Pacquiao will know that there's always been rumors surrounding it. You know what I mean? And I note for the last fight against Thurman, there was no Olympic-style drug testing. And Thurman has since come out and says he regrets that. Now, I wonder why he's saying that now.
I don't know, man. Where is he anyway? Let me go to some comments quickly, man. Simon Lar just put here, Manny. See, everyone's doing it, man. You can see it on the night. He throws a couple punches, the crowd are going to go mad.
I can see it. You know what I mean? I could see Spence winning that fight 8 rounds to 4 and somehow still coming out losing on points. It's a very difficult assignment because, like I said, the whole boxing fraternity is going to be rooting for Manny Pacquiao. Whether they dislike, it's not even down to the fact that they dislike Spence, you know.
I think he's very popular.
It's all to do with sentiment and clout and Manny being who he is. I mean, let's face it, man. He's a very likable man, Manny Pacquiao. He's a great fighter inside the ring, and he conducts himself very well outside the ring. You know, he's a senator. He does all that charity work for his people. He's a man of the people. And that is not lost on public sentiment and public consciousness. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man.
Let's go to some more comments here. Ian Hamilton has put, Spence for me will be too much for Pac-Man. I agree. You can't fault Manny for doing this, and he's not afraid of anyone, and this proves it. Spence needs a statement win to put himself in the mainstream more. My guy Jeff TV in the chat all the way from Philly. We got some basketball to talk about, bro. We need to talk about these playoffs. My guys, Boxing Lowdown and Laurie, salute, fellas. What's going on, Jeff, man? Conrad has put here, people love good stories, which is very true. And yeah, Simon Large has put here, what does Spence have to gain in this fight?
Well, what he has to gain is, for number one, he's going to get a massive bag that he wouldn't have got fighting anybody else outside of maybe the Crawford fight. And secondly, it's prestige, isn't it? You defeated Manny Pacquiao, an all-time great. And if he can do a number on Pacquiao, like I said, that will enhance Errol Spence's status no end. But I would want to say one thing on this while we're talking about Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence is, don't you think it's interesting, Daryl, that Manny Pacquiao, let's be honest, given his status in the game, he could have fought any one of those welterweight champions out there or any one of those top contenders, and he's chosen to fight Errol Spence. My question to you is, why didn't he have the Crawford fight, which would have been just as easy to make? Why do you think he didn't choose Crawford?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Exactly. Could it be that Manny Pacquiao sees Errol Spence as a slightly easier fight than he does Crawford?
Maybe.
I think that might have a lot to do with it, to be honest. Because let's face it, man, Manny is the A side in this fight. So he can pick and choose. Yeah, he's the A side. His bag is secured. His legacy is secured. But what he's done, he's sat down with Freddie Roach and Justin Fortune and his team. He's assessed both those guys. Not to say that he's scared of Crawford, but what I'm saying, it's a strategic decision. We've spoken on this show many times before about how fighters, and I use Canelo as an example all the time, is that they will select certain fighters because they know deep down they can beat them, or they think they can beat them, or that their styles match up well against that particular style. And what I'm suggesting now is that Manny Pacquiao was sat down with Freddie Roach, Justin Fortune, Boo Boy, all the guys in his inner circle. They've looked at the strengths and weaknesses and the styles of both Errol Spence and Crawford, and they've decided to go for Errol Spence. And I'm saying, why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of people in the chat here are kind of alluding to that. They're saying Crawford, like Bumper K here, he's saying Crawford a different planet to Spence. Everyone knows that. Yeah. Conrad has said because Manny thinks Errol is slow, especially on the foot game. And Bumper K has said here, let's not get it twisted. Brook would have beat Spence if Triple G didn't mess him up. It's almost, like I said, it's 4 years almost to the day now when Errol Spence came over here and defeated Kell Brook. Let's talk about, I mean, we spoke about this yesterday, so let's switch it a little bit to Terrence Crawford, because how let down must he be feeling over this? That fight there, I saw Mike Coppinger tweet after the fight was announced, and he said that the way how PBC managed to get this fight was that they saw that there was cracks in the deal between Top Rank and Manny Pacquiao arranging that fight with him and Crawford, and then they swept in, and then they just got the Errol Spence fight done. Under the radar. Didn't know. It wasn't like Eddie Hearn. It wasn't like that. They literally went under the radar, got that fight done, and then it just got announced just like that. Bang. So if you're Terrence Crawford, I mean, how are you feeling, man? I mean, it's getting silly now. He ain't got no fight coming up. Yeah. His promoter's out there publicly dissing him again. I think he said something about him the other day. And it's a shame, man, because I don't want to see this guy's prime go to waste. And is that the case right now?
Listen, man, recently there's been talk about step-aside money and so forth. Somebody give Bob Arum some step-aside money so he can get the hell out of boxing, because he's not doing his job as a promoter. And the job that if you can call it that he's doing with Terrence Crawford is to actually decelerate Terrence Crawford's career, which is a crying shame, because the guy is, I think, talent for talent, number one in boxing at the moment, and he's been let down by people like Bob Arum. So as soon as I understand his contract expires with Top Rank later on this year, he needs to get the hell out of Top Rank, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that played a significant part in him not getting the Pacquiao fight. And we know as well, don't we? I mean, those of us who follow Manny Pacquiao's career knows that he's got a very fractious relationship with Bob Arum. And this is the same Bob Arum we used to talk about Manny being like his son, and Manny being next to Ali, the greatest fighter of all time, and blah, blah, blah. And I consider him more than just a boxer. Manny Pacquiao can't stand the sight of Bob Arum. And that was probably that probably also had something to do with the fact that Crawford couldn't land the fight. They just don't want to do business with this guy, man. You know what I mean? Ask Eddie Hearn if he wants to do any more business with Bob Arum after what's happened recently. So
Triple Single has said here, it's a PBC fighter versus a PBC fighter. What's new? Why should Crawford be that surprised? He should be surprised because the fight was literally taken under his, you know what I mean? That fight was, we were told from Bob Arum, and we know what Bob Arum's like, but we were told that an announcement was imminent within the next week. We were told that this fight was going to be announced, a huge pay-per-view fight for Crawford. Then there was leaks coming out saying it was going to be Pacquiao. So everybody was like, okay, it's going to be announced. And all of a sudden, that fight went away. And then literally when that went away, Errol Spence's fight was getting done behind the scenes. So yeah, Crawford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe he shouldn't be
all intents
surprised,
and
but he should be disappointed.
To all intents and purposes, we were being led to believe, a bit like with the AJ and Fury fight, we were led to believe that the fight that Manny was going to take was Manny versus Crawford. That was what was being put out there. Yeah. And so the surprise was when it was turned around that it was Manny versus Errol Spence. So again, I do believe that some of it was to do with the fact that Manny Pacquiao sees Errol Spence as a slightly easier route than Crawford. But also, you can't discount the fact that Bob Arum and Manny Pacquiao don't get on. And also that Bob Arum recently has not been able to get fights over the line for whatever reason. I just think he's too old, too long in the tooth. He has a different set of values that don't work in the modern era. And I just think that I wouldn't recommend that any top fighters stay with Bob Arum, man. I think he's to the detriment of their careers. I really do. I think it's getting that bad now.
Triple Singles made a good point here. He said, so why should Josh Taylor stay with Bob Arum if he plans on moving up to 147? What can Bob deliver for Taylor at welterweight? He has no roster at 147. And if you look at, his track record recently, anyway, his recent track record, what's he done for Terrence Crawford? Okay, Crawford's got the WBO belt, but all of these fights are getting made. He's just sitting on the sidelines and he's got no fight announcement coming up. What can Bob Arum deliver for Taylor at welterweight?
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, listen, you alluded to it earlier. He does have a couple of guys in that stable that, conceivably fights could be made. For example, Lopez, that fight might get made because he's a Bob Arum. Although even with him, he's with Triller now, isn't he? That relationship broken down.
I think that's on the way out. Yeah, I don't know.
So, I don't think that relationship is is working. So, yeah, man. I mean, listen, man, Josh Taylor, you might want to look at how long he's got left on that contract. If I was him.
Yeah.
Because there's no doubt, let's be honest, man, if Josh Taylor was being promoted by Eddie Hearn, say what you want to say about Eddie Hearn, man. And, he's a bit like Marmite, isn't it? Some people love him. Some people absolutely despise him. And some are indifferent towards him. But the one thing you can say is that the man's very good at his job. And if Josh Taylor was a matchroom fighter or a DAZN fighter, his ceiling would be through the roof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Josh has missed out a little bit there.
Be interested to see how it all plays out, man. But at the end of the day, it's official. Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence will be fighting in August the 24th, I think it is. And that will be in Las Vegas. And I'll just say this now. I think that Errol Spence will be way too much for Pacquiao, man, at this age. We have to remember Pacquiao has had 2 years out himself, even at this old age. Do you know what I mean? So you're not only going up against a young, hungry bull, an undefeated world champion that's at the top of his game. You're going up against inactivity, age, and you're not that buzzsaw type of fight. I mean, he's still quick, Manny Pacquiao, but I just think I think Spence is just too big, too strong, too athletic. Just a bad style for Pacquiao at this age, but I won't take anything from him for taking it.
I mean, on the face of it, everything you said there is correct, but then you also have to look at Errol Spence. He's not been mega active either. He fought Danny Garcia. Like I said, it was a very creditable performance, but he didn't come close to stopping Danny Garcia. He didn't come close to stopping Sean Porter in a fight, by the way, that some people thought, again, had it not been for a knockdown, it might have been a draw. He may even have lost that fight. Also, the fight before that, he hit Mikey Garcia, pretty much everything but the kitchen sink, and he couldn't get him out of there either. So is it a bit of a stretch to suggest that he's going to walk through Pacquiao? I'm not so sure. And like I said, if that fight is even reasonably competitive and goes to the scorecards, I wouldn't bet my money on the judges giving Errol Spence a fight. Can you? I mean, you know what boxing politics is like. And then you've got someone like Manny Pacquiao who's a whole different ball game. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Conrad has said here, why do you think Crawford apparently turned down the Porter fight according to Camp Porter? I don't know if you saw Kenny Porter's interview where he said that Team Crawford basically turned down that fight. I mean, what's going on? What is going on?
I certainly don't think if he turned down that fight, it's because he's scared of Sean
Because
Porter.
Bob Arum, that I think Kenny Porter said Bob Arum just didn't want it. He said, "Yeah, we'll get back to you," and then he didn't.
Yeah. Who knows, man? I mean, boxing politics these days is so profound and so confusing that I can't make no sense of it. But what I would say unequivocally is, if the Porter camp are for any reason trying to suggest it's because Terrence Crawford is scared of Sean Porter, then that is absolute rubbish. So it's probably to do with the promotional end of things. You know what I mean?
Probably to do with Bob saying, that he's losing money on Terrence Crawford. Crawford needs to get the hell out of there, man.
Yeah, well, if he's losing money, maybe he needs to come to some agreement and let the fighter go. I mean, I'm sure there'd be plenty of guys that would snap him up. I'm sure Eddie Hearn would snap up Terrence Crawford in a heartbeat. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
if he's not making no money off the guy, then release him. Let him go. Free Crawford. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ian Hamilton has said here, Lopez has seen the light with Bob. Floyd did, as many others did. He likes you when you make him loads of money. If Josh has sense, go now because the man can't deliver when it matters. Bumper K has put here, Bob Arum, busy rolling zoots. 22B has put, Arum's ego is all he cares about. And Triple Single has said here, Sean Porter himself said he wasn't allowed to go down the mandatory route on his podcast, saying he has people he needs to listen to, and made an AH reference, Al Heyman. Interesting. Let's move on from this topic now and talk about the fight this weekend between Devin Haney and Jorge Linares. Is it a fight that you're looking forward to? I know you've talked up Devin Haney a lot. Is this a test for him?
Yeah, I am looking forward to this fight, actually. It's not got the same sense of excitement as last week's fight.
Not really.
Because the two fighters are not really that way inclined, are they? They're not what I would call exciting fighters. Even Linares, I wouldn't classify him as an exciting fighter. He's a very talented fighter, very skilled. For me, I like watching him, but then he's not going to resonate with some boxing fans the way, you know what I mean, he would with myself. But listen, man, this is a big step up for Devin Haney, and I'm big on Haney. I do like him. I think he's very skilled. He's not a big puncher, but he's one of the new breed that I enjoy watching. And I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it'll catch fire. I think it could be some ebb and flow in it, but I do expect Haney, who's the younger, presumably stronger guy, to prevail. And I think he could even get a stoppage late, because Linares, he can be a bit susceptible in the chin area. He's been down a few times in his career. He's been stopped a few times. And he got a young, hungry lion like Devin Haney, who's, you know what I mean, looking to make a statement in this fight. And I think that might be the difference.
Yeah. Jorge Linares, man, I mean, he's had a very good career. He is getting on in age a little bit now. He still can present technical problems for Haney. And plus, we haven't seen what Haney's like with the whisker area yet, when he's been hit by a noted... I mean, Linares did drop Lomachenko. It was a flash knockdown, but he still dropped him.
Linares is... listen, man, Linares is a quality fighter. He's been around the block. He's fought a lot of fighters of, you know what I mean, exceptional quality. You know what I mean, you saw what he did when he came over to Britain. He's fought Luke Campbell. He's fought Kevin Mitchell, the likes, you know what I mean? He's quality. But like you said, Daryl, he's aging. He's been around a while. And you got a young, hungry guy like Haney, you know what I mean, on the come up, looking to take out the names to establish himself. So in a way, this is kind of the perfect fight for Devin Haney. So I don't expect him to slip up. And one thing I do like about Devin Haney is that he's always in the gym. He's always looking like he's perfecting his craft. He seems mega keen. He's calling guys out. It would appear that he's been ducked by quite a few people in that division, including Lopez and Ryan Garcia and people like that. So there must be something about him, Daryl. You know, he's an outstanding amateur. He's got a very good reputation. If you kind of look at the boxing landscape, you hear the way people talk about fighters in the gyms and stuff like that. And Haney's name always gets a lot of respect put on it. So listen, man, he's a good fighter. I'm sure about that. He's unbeaten. Let's face it, he's won all his fights to date with ease. He hasn't always excited in us. So, for example, in the Uriokis-Gamboa fight, it wasn't the most exciting fight. But let's be honest, man, he outclassed Gamboa, won every round. Yeah. I think the problem for him is that he didn't put him away, despite all the talking he was doing before the fight. Because Haney's one of those young guys, man. He's quite brash, quite verbose, you know what I mean, likes to talk a lot, which is fine. But then if you don't deliver, we said this before about Josh Taylor, you've got to deliver on the talk, you know what I mean? And Devin Haney against Gambo, he didn't do that, even though he won the fight clearly and comfortably. But in this fight, it's a big fight. Linares is a big name with a lot of respect on his name. So Haney will be looking to take that, man. He's got to go in there and do a job.
Let's say Haney does
the knockout. He's got to get a couple knockdowns or look impressive anyway.
Ian Hammond's made a point here. He said the intrigue around this fight is more about how Haney wins. Everybody around 135 pounds has either had a statement win or a test to prove themselves. This is Devin Haney's one. But do you think if Devin Haney was to wash Linares, people would say, Linares is old anyway. He got him at the right time. We need to see someone else. Do you think they'll do that with Haney? I can see someone like Ryan Garcia saying that.
I think you could get that, but Linares still has enough pop on him to ensure that he's still... Listen, I expect Linares to be in the fight up until a certain point.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, man. I mean, he's very skilled. He's very experienced. You know, and he can punch a bit as well. I mean, he's not one of these guys that, you know what I mean, he's just going to just rock up. You know what I mean? He wants to win as well to continue his career. So it's not like an aging guy coming out of retirement for one last shot. You know what I mean? He will still believe that he's got a future in boxing. So the stakes are high for Linares as well, because he knows that if he gets shredded on Saturday against Devin Haney, that could be his career at the top flight pretty much over. So he's fighting for more than just pride in this fight. You know what I mean? He will still see a career path out there for him. And what better if you're Linares that you could take down one of the young guns coming up. And let's face it, man, if you look back in history, these types of upsets have happened before. And looking at Linares' body language, man, he seems to believe in himself. I like how he's approached this fight. He's very self-confident individual anyway, but I'm looking at him closely, man, and he seems very confident. He feels that he's got the better experience, the better skills, and he thinks that on the night it will tell. So let's see, man.
Diaz has said here, Linares is the test to see how good Haney actually is. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Haney performs. And I think one of the reasons why is because the ceiling for Devin Haney, for me anyway, is as high as it is for anyone at that weight. For me, in my humble opinion, I think that the eye test, I was saying it yesterday, for me, Devin Haney looks like he has the potential to go as far as anyone, in my opinion. We can't say it yet because he hasn't got it on his resume. It's just what I feel. Like, I can say how I feel, but like, I think you'll agree with me on it.
I absolutely do agree. Listen, the two things that slightly holding up Devin Haney's progress at the moment is, number one, the resume. So he hasn't got the names on his record like, say, a Teofimo has. I mean, Teofimo's got that great win against Lomachenko. He's got the Nakatani defeat. He's got Richard Comey on his resume. For whatever reason, Devin Haney doesn't have those types of names on his resume yet. But if he can get Linares on his resume and look good doing it, then this will be a massive boost for his career. Secondly, the edge that Teofimo Lopez has over Devin Haney is that he has more highlight knockout wins. I mean, he's perceived as a big puncher, whereas Devin Haney is not really perceived, not today anyway, as a big puncher, although he does have a couple of good KO wins. So if you can get that on Saturday, that will, you know, I mean, enhance his status, you know? I've got a few problems with my Mac here. It's saying I might have a bit of a battery problem here, Darryl. Do you want to sort while I go and sort this out?
Sort that out and come back, man.
Yeah.
See, they're trying to do Laurie dirty again here on the show, guys, man. Crazy. But yeah, listen, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments, man, about this actual fight, your predictions on Linares and Devin Haney. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, man. I know some people have really been saying that, you know, they would have liked to have seen him in with somebody else. They might think that Linares is getting too long in the tooth now. The win might not be as impressive as like maybe Ryan Garcia against Luke Campbell, for example, or Teofimo Lopez against Loma. But for me, I'm looking forward to this fight. I'm looking forward to seeing how Haney is. And I've seen a few of you guys in the comments say that as well. Let's go to the comments here. I've got Triple Single. He's put, Bob Arum literally said, Why make Teofimo versus Haney when we can wait until Haney is a free agent? The man is killing boxing without hiding it. I mean, if he did say that, I don't know where you saw that triple single, but I'm not going to doubt you. You know, I'm going to believe what you said there. And if he did say that, then, you know, I just don't know anymore, man. That is terrible to see that. I'll see you come back now. Have you charged up the laptop? You're on mute. Unmute. There you go. Yeah, what was you saying?
Yeah, we were talking about Devin Haney, and I was saying the importance of looking good on Saturday is paramount because, listen, anybody that studies boxing, the real boxing observers who've seen Devin Haney fight, we know his quality, we know he's talented. Unfortunately for Haney, though, he's not perceived as a big puncher or an exciting fighter. So he needs a couple of big wins that will resonate with the boxing public. Yeah. So if you can get that type of win on Saturday, that will enhance his career no end.
I'm looking forward to it, man. This fight will be shown on DAZN, early hours of the morning. Yeah, DAZN, if you guys haven't got the app, I'm sure everybody on here has. But at the moment, I think it is still £2 a month. I don't know when that will go up, but it will go up soon. So enjoy it while you can. But yeah, that fight will be on DAZN. Devin Haney against Jorge Linares. Check that out. And no doubt we'll give a review on that next week. But before we sign out for today, man, let's just talk about this whole heavyweight situation before we go. Fury and Wilder 3 looks like it will be happening in July. AJ and Usyk apparently seems to be on the card still, but Dylan White has thrown his hat into the ring. So just give me your thoughts on that whole situation right now, the heavyweight division. And Ade, yesterday, he was pretty much right. I know you saw it, but he was pretty much writing Deontay Wilder's chances off. He don't think Wilder has really any chance. You disagree, though, don't you?
I do disagree because Wilder has what I call the equalizer in that right hand. Now, whether he will land it on Fury and put him away, I would have to agree with Ade and say you would have to make Tyson Fury a heavy favorite. But you can never count punchers out, especially in the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is unlike a lot of the other divisions, man. You know what I mean? And we've seen this over the years. You know what I mean? We've seen boxers that are way more talented and they get chinned by a lesser talented guy because they got caught. I mean, look at Lennox Lewis's defeats. One to Hazim Rahman, the other one to Oliver McCall. Both guys infinitely inferior talent-wise to Lennox, but they managed to get to him, you know what I mean? And this type of stuff happens all the time in heavyweight boxing. Yeah. So I wouldn't write Wilder out completely. And then you also have to remember as well that Wilder is motivated by revenge. He's motivated by vengeance, which is a very powerful motivator, you know what I mean? Especially if it's channeled in the right way. And it was interesting. I was listening to Ade saying, yeah, he's seen Wilder and yes, he's on the pads, but it doesn't really translate to much. I would kind of disagree because what I'm seeing from Wilder is somebody that's determined, you know what I mean? More determined than I've seen him in the past. I think before with Wilder, he was riding that wave, wasn't he? Where everything was, all I've got to do is land the right hand. And you know what I mean? He was pretty arrogant and dismissive of his opponents. I think with what that loss to Fury has kind of humbled him a little bit, even though he's angry about it for a whole host of reasons that I won't go into now. But that loss has humbled him, and he's angered about certain aspects of that second fight, and he wants to try and get his revenge. And you cannot just write off a man like that. You know what I mean? I've been in that position myself in life, not just in boxing, but in, you know what I mean? I'm sure you have as well. When you feel wrong, Daryl, and you're motivated to do something, how does that make you feel? You know what I mean? So for that reason, you can't write him off entirely. The other point I would wish to make as well is I've heard a lot of people going back and forth over this, the step aside money and the third fight. And listen, you know what I mean, put my thoughts on the record many times about rematch clauses and stuff like that. I don't like them. You know what I mean? I don't think there should be rematches in boxing unless there's some plausible justification for it. But at the same time, contractually, there was a rematch clause. So Fury was obligated to give Wilder a rematch. So And if Wilder chooses not to take step-aside money, which he's clearly done in this case, then it's only right that they should have to fight. So people saying, well, you know what I mean, it should never be another fight because look what Fury did to him the second time. It wasn't even close. It was conclusive. Yes, they're right in saying that. But also, you got the specter of the contract. And if Fury signed it, you know what I mean, and Wilder wants to exercise his rematch clause, then unfortunately, that's the way it turns out.
Did you see John Fury's interview? I think it was today.
I try not to watch anything with John Fury in it, man. So no, I didn't. But no doubt it's going to be some boorish rant.
I ain't seen it, but apparently was, you know, I think he was disappointed in his, like, let me get the quote up today. It was I haven't seen the interview, but I'll get the quote up what he said.
Some boorish monologue with him shouting and ranting and not saying very much about anything.
No, I think he wasn't holding it. Yeah, he was probably being bullish as usual, but he was saying the quote here was I was told that the arbitration was not a problem. All of a sudden it's a problem. This arbitration could have been squashed in December, but they didn't squash it. I can rattle on all day. The public know they're not fools. Garbage. 20,000 yes men around him. What's happening in America with him? Appalling work. It's diabolical. You're geared up to fight one man in Joshua. It's all sorted in 24 hours. With Wilder, it's a mistake. He can blame his team, no one else. So he's really going in on his team, on Tyson, on his son's team. John Fury is. But I think I can agree with that.
Well, the trouble with the Furies is that he'll say that today, and much like his son, he'll say something completely different next week or tomorrow even. So, to be honest with you, man, I'm not too keen on John Fury. The stuff that comes out of his mouth is 90% garbage.
You're not going on his tour. You're not going on his tour then.
Tour? Hell no. Listen, man, good luck to him. If he can manipulate the people like that and tour, wow. If that's what he's doing, then more power to him, man. But me, I'm definitely not interested in that. Not one scintilla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Conrad has said here, how do you see AJ versus Usyk going if it happens? Because like I said, people now are starting to talk about Dillian Whyte. But how do you see AJ and Usyk if that happens?
You know what? I think that would be a decent fight while it lasts. I can imagine Usyk presenting AJ with some problems with his southpaw style and his movement, and his boxing skill and his experience and his underrated toughness and punching power, because he's a very tough man, Usyk, you know what I mean? Very experienced as well. But I just think that after 4, 5, 6 rounds, I think AJ is going to be just too young, too strong, and just too powerful for him, man. And I think he's going to start to walk him down. And I could see AJ stopping him, man. I really could.
Yeah. For me, I haven't been. I know he's a phenomenal fighter, unbelievable ability, and what he's accomplished in his career so far. You can't take that away from him. But as a heavyweight, it's totally different at heavyweight. And I haven't been impressed with Usyk as a heavyweight in the pro ranks yet. I wasn't really impressed with him against Witherspoon. I wasn't really impressed with him against Chisora, if I'm being honest. He got tagged a lot in that fight. And I'm just thinking if it was one of the giants that tagged him, like AJ or someone else, I know he don't fight like Chisora, but you can't tell me that he's not going to be able to land on Usyk. How's Usyk going to take that at heavyweight? So someone like AJ.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, listen, and I know it's a slightly different style of fighting that Chisora has to AJ. But if you noticed in that fight, man, there were times when Chisora was clearly physically the more stronger and was able to push Usyk back and bully him at times in that fight. Had Usyk complaining to the referee and things like that. Now, like I said, I know it's a slightly different type of style. AJ is not your sort of rumbling in and, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But he is big and strong, big, long jab, very physical when he wants to be. And I just think that a combination of all those things, plus the power, I just think that would be too much for Usyk in a 12-round fight. I think in the latter half of that fight, if they fight, I think that AJ will start to wear him down and take him out. And a point that you made, Daryl, yesterday, which I thought was a very good point when you were talking about the potential of a Usyk and AJ fight, is that you were saying, listen, man, although Usyk has good feet, his defense is not impregnable. You know what I mean? I've seen him get hit clearly a number of times, you know what I mean, by guys who are not as skilled as AJ are. You know what I mean? So if they can do it, you've got to say to yourself, well, AJ can do it as well. And it's going to be a lot more force on those punches than when he was down at cruiserweight. So, yeah, I can't see Usyk beating him. But it'll be a good fight while it lasts, because I'm sure Usyk will give it his best. And like I said, he's got the type of skill set that will present AJ with some problems. AJ will have to make adjustments, but I'm confident that he can do that and get the job done.
Conrad has said here, I see a lot of people saying that Usyk has no chance. And if you probably listened to us for the last couple of minutes, you might think that's what we think. And that's not the case, though. But anyway, Conrad has said here, I see a lot of people saying Usyk has no chance. But then why is AJ Eddie talking about dropping the belt and fighting White instead, who is always dangerous? Have you seen some of that news floating about over the last couple of days?
I have. And you know what? I don't blame Dylan for trying to get himself in the frame, man. You know what I mean? He's been waiting around for a title shot for a long while. He deserves a title shot. And let's be honest, man, a domestic dust-up with Dylan and AJ, you know how the dynamics of those two are. They don't get along, and it's well known. And it makes for great promotion, doesn't it? So I would imagine there'll be a lot more domestic interest in a AJ versus Dillian White fight than there would be a Usyk fight because of the characters involved. You know what Dillian's like, you know what I mean? Very irascible, good at self-promotion, great trash talker, and he'd be in AJ's face. And that would probably make a pay-per-view fight more sellable to the British public anyway than a Usyk fight, who people, you know, I mean, his English is not great. And yeah, I think
would you like to see AJ drop the belt?
No, I wouldn't want to see him drop the belt, but I'm just talking about boxing promotion and stuff like that. So if you're Eddie Hearn and you're looking strictly at the pound note, you might be thinking to yourself, well, actually, I could make more money or have a bigger promotion with AJ and Dillian rather than AJ and Usyk. But me personally, I'd rather see him fight Usyk.
One person that we ain't spoke about is Joe Joyce, man. I mean, where has this left him? I mean, even now, if Usyk does get that fight against AJ, then Joe Joyce has literally just been sitting around waiting patiently since November. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't been able to capitalize off that win off Dubois, who's fighting in a couple of weeks, actually, Daniel Dubois. And Joe Joyce has been sitting there waiting, and what's he going to do?
Yeah, he's sitting there waiting. And to be fair as well to Joe Joyce, he's getting on a bit. He's older than all of those guys. You know what I mean? He's older than all of them. So, yeah, it's not a good situation for him. And like you said, it's ironic that Daniel Dubois will actually be fighting in a couple of weeks. And Joe Joyce, who beat him so convincingly, is not even in the frame for a fight at the moment. I mean, there was talk of him fighting Usyk, wasn't it? But I don't think Usyk, and again, it's not because he's scared or whatever, but they don't seem to be in a rush to take that fight with Joe Joyce, do they? Which is understandable, because if you're on the verge of a world title shot, then you're not really going to want it. That would be a retrograde step, wouldn't it, to fight Joe Joyce? So
if the belt becomes vacant, then him and Joyce would have to fight for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no reason for him to fight him, I guess.
Yeah.
Diaz has said here, it will be interesting to see how Fury deals with the pressure. This is his first title defense and probably the first time he'll be the heavy favorite going into a big fight.
Well, I've seen Tyson Fury this week, and he looks to be very confident. You know what I mean? He's saying, yeah, bring it on. I'll smash him again. I'll do it in one round this time. So I don't know, man. It could be smoke and mirrors, but he looks very confident. As well he might. I mean, you know, he's arguably won both fights against Wilder. The first fight, he could make a case for the draw, actually, because of the knockdowns. I actually thought he got quite fortunate with that second knockdown, because if you look at it again, he was definitely on the floor for more than 10 seconds. But in the second fight, man, he absolutely smashed Wilder, didn't he? Let's be honest. So you can understand why he'd be confident going into the rematch. The only problem with him going into the rematch with that type of mindset is that sometimes there can be a thin line between confidence and overconfidence, especially when your opponent is motivated beyond belief. So he does need to watch that a little bit. But hey, who am I to give advice to the Gypsy King? You know what I mean? So
let's go to some comments. Got a lot of comments here, man. First of all, give a big shout out to Shane, who is in the chat, man. Shane Willoughby in the house. He's put, yo, good to
Shane's
see Shane.
Been ducking me for a while, man. Ever since that Bivol and Richards fight, man. It's like Shane don't want to come on.
Don't get him started, man, on that. But he's put, "What's up, Laurie and Daryl, man? Good to have Shane here, man."
Yeah, man. Shout out to Shane. Big up, big up.
Got a comment here from Francisco Alator. Now, I know this guy came on a couple of weeks ago, and he's put here, "Laurie, I checked your critiques of Canelo, and I agree with you. Remember when you asked him a couple of weeks ago?"
Wow.
And he's put, so let's see what he's got to say. He's put, "Laurie, I checked your critiques of Canelo, and I agree with you. You wondered if my Mexican heritage might make me hesitant to acknowledge your analysis, but I'm all about casting a cold eye." You're going to love this guy.
Enough respect to Francisco. Listen, man, it's nothing personal with Canelo. I've said it time and time and again. I like watching the guy fight. I'm a fan. I just don't like a lot of the BS that goes with it. Listen, I'm also a massive Errol Spence fan, but it hasn't stopped me from calling him out on his bullshit as well. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, man. Listen, I think first and foremost, we're fans of the sport. And I think where some people get it wrong is they become so emotionally attached to fighters. And listen, I've done that in the past myself. You know what I mean? You know, with numerous fighters. So I'm not a reproach. You know what I mean? I've done it myself. And so maybe that's why I can speak now, because I've done this type of thing in the past where you become so emotionally in tune with a fighter, so invested that you can't see the wood from the trees. You know what I mean? They almost become, you put them on that pedestal and, you know what I mean, you won't have anybody even dare to criticize them. But we should remember that we're boxing fans first, and the boxers, they will come and go. As good as Canelo is, one day he will be beaten again, or if not, whatever, he will retire and there'll be another a guy on the block. You know what I mean? So it happens.
Big up Francisco.
Yeah, respect to Francisco, man. I appreciate that.
Good to have him here. Good to have him here. Conrad has said here, "Isn't Joyce fighting Hook?" I don't know.
I hope not. What, Marco Hook?
I don't know. I haven't heard that. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Please, no, man. I mean, surely Sam Jones can. I mean, Sam Jones likes to fancy himself as the next big thing in terms of promoting, and he surely can come up with something better than that.
Ian Hamilton has said here, "If Fury can fight Wilder multiple times, why shouldn't AJ rematch someone? Him versus Dillian would have more attention. After all this, does AJ want a belt? If Usyk, then I'll be fine with it." Obviously, the only thing is that if he drops the belt, then that fight with Fury will obviously still be big, but we can't sell the Undisputed angle anymore if Fury was to overcome Wilder, of course. So for me personally, I'd rather refight Usyk. Yeah,
listen, and also they might be looking at the Dillian White fight as a backup plan. It's leverage, isn't it? If you're AJ and you're putting Dillian White's name out there, no disrespect to Dillian, but they could be doing that strategically because it's to try and broker a deal. You're leveraging Dillian White's name. So basically you're putting it in Usyk's head. Say, listen, if you don't play ball with the promotion, I've got another option I can go to. Yeah. You know what I mean? So sometimes it could be that as well. And again, like I said, it could also be that they're looking at the landscape and saying, listen, man, the Dillian White fight would actually be a bigger draw than Usyk. Because I actually think it could be, you know. What do you think?
Yeah, it would be.
Especially in this country, much more people. Like I said, you've only got to organize a press conference and have Dillian White in there, man. You know what I mean? And put AJ in the same room. And you know that there's going to be enough tension in that room. Yeah. And if AJ says something slick to Dillian, it might kick off there and then.
I think White would have
if you're a promoter like Eddie Hearn and you know that, you're thinking, wow, you know what I mean? I can sell that and make it a massive fight.
Diaz has said here, if AJ fights Usyk, I would love to see White versus Joyce. That's a great fight, man.
That is a good fight. Yeah.
Conrad has said here, am I the only one who doesn't buy the Fury confidence? He sounds more like a crazy person to me. I mean, Fury's over the last couple of weeks, he said a lot of shit. Let's be honest, man. He's really like, and I've noticed online and stuff, a lot of people are starting to gravitate away from him rather than towards him like they were before. People saying it yesterday as well. But what I will say is he is a crazy person, but let's not forget what he has done. Do you know what I mean? When he went to Germany and beat Klitschko, when he did come over to the US and fight Wilder twice, beating him the second time. I think he is crazy, but I think there is confidence there as well. I mean, Conrad's not really sure about it, but I think he must have some confidence in there to do that kind of thing.
Listen, I've always said that Tyson, one of the best parts of Tyson Fury's game is that kind of innate self-confidence that he has. You know, I think that's probably one of the biggest attributes that he has, together with his awkwardness and the fact that for a big guy, 6'9", 18 stone plus, athletically, he is gifted. There's no doubt about that. The way he moves for a big man, you're not going to see that often. You know what I mean? So you've got those attributes that he draws from very well, and self-confidence is high up on that list. And listen, yeah, you're right. And I agree with you. A lot of these stuff that he comes out with, man, is just garbage. But he manages to promote himself in that way, and it's worked for him so far. So I guess he's going to keep doing it. Yeah.
Big up my bro Harvey in the chat, man. Enough respect to you, man. He's put, yo, shout out to you both. Shout out to you, man. Thank you for being here. Shayna said here, bro, I'll come on anytime. You know that. You guys need to come on with me and Jeff. We're due to go back on there, man. We are, aren't we?
Yeah, man. I thought he was ducking the smoke ever since Bivol turned in that very unimpressive. I mean, did Craig Richards do enough to get the decision? I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of close.
Javier Orozco, I hope I pronounced your name right. He's put here, 4-division champion, pound for pound, unifying 168 against Plant, Canelo. Crowns everywhere, man. Listen, let's not get low on this, man.
No, listen, Javier, you sound like you might have some Mexican heritage going on there, or certain Hispanic. Listen, man, shout out for your boy, man. You know what I mean? He's a great fighter. But Javier, man, you've also got to take on board some of the other stuff that's going on with Canelo, man. How come you haven't mentioned PEDs in there, you know what I mean? And ducking and cherry picking and stuff like that, and manipulating the sanctioning bodies. I'd be interested to hear what he's got to say about that.
Shane Willoughby has said here, if Fury gets knocked out on my life, I won't be surprised. You won't be surprised either, will you?
No, because he's already been knocked out. It's the thing. I was listening to Ade talk yesterday, and Ade seems to think it will never happen. Why? It already has done. He's already been knocked out by Wilder. Fury is fortunate that he had the same type of referee that Josh Taylor had last week. You know what I mean? Where you have a referee that's going to give you those opportunities, man, to survive the knockdown. Many referees, Daryl, you've watched boxing for God knows how many years. And you know what I'm saying right now is true. Many referees across the world, they wouldn't even have allowed Fury to get up. They would have counted him out when he was on his back. And if the referee had done that, not too many people would have been complaining. And that would have gone down as a knockout victory for Wilder.
Let me ask you something. Some referees, I guess it's like a grey area then, because when Fury got knocked down in that first fight, the second time in the last round against Wilder, some referees would have just looked at Fury and be like, no, that's it. But like other referees will count. So it's a grey area, isn't it? There's no like.
That's exactly the point I'm making. And it's also been timed that knockdown, to the time when he went down to the time he got back up, it was 13 seconds plus. It's been timed. So what I'm saying is not conjecture, it's actual fact. People can go and look at it for themselves. The Daily Mail and other publications, they assessed the knockdown and they timed it, and they said it was over 13 seconds. So Wilder can quite rightfully feel aggrieved that he didn't get the knockout in that first fight. Okay, Fury, you can't knock him, man. He got up, he showed tremendous heart. He actually came back and won the rest of that round. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Credit to him for that, even though I don't like some of the BS he does. But in the ring, you can't really fault him too much. What he did there was phenomenal. But you cannot argue with the fact that he was knocked out in that fight. So I'm saying, if that happened to him before, who's to say it can't happen again? And if you've got Tyson Fury, you know what I mean, doing around in nightclubs and hobnobbing everywhere and not taking things seriously and just, I'm going to knock him out, I'm going to smash him and all that. And if he really does start to believe his own hype that way and not preparing properly, I mean, listen, it could all be an act, because we know what Tyson Fury is like. But what I'm saying is, man, if mentally, if he's not tuned in, okay, but if he's not tuned in and he doesn't do his due diligence in the lead up to this fight and he's a little bit not there come fight night, in a matter of seconds, it could all be over. You know what I mean? So, you know.
Shane Willoughby, my bro, has put here, I swear I love this channel. We need to link up real soon. I swear we do, man. We do. He's put, Laurie is my boxing dad. It's true, isn't it?
I'm hoping he's meaning that as a compliment. I'm taking that as a compliment. I hope it's not.
No, yeah, he means that as a compliment.
I guess I am old enough to be his dad. Plus, but hey, yeah, man. Yeah, we love having Shane on, man. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Shane's put here, bro. Do you remember when Dillian knocked out Chisora? He waved off the fight before Chisora hit the ground. And then
man, in so many fights when a fighter has hit the ground like that heavily, hit his head on the canvas, eyes roll back in his head, and the referee has just stood over them. Even when as the fighter's pleading with them, saying, no, no, no. I've seen fighters that get hit and they just get wobbled, and you see the referee jumping, you think, hang on a minute, he surely could have let him carry on. It's a subjective thing. There's no hard and fast rules. And like I said, I thought Tyson Fury got lucky that night. And I also thought that Ramirez got extremely lucky on Saturday night when he fought Taylor, because that second knockdown in particular, he was out of there, man. And the referee clearly done him a favor. Yeah. Everybody who saw that fight that was not biased towards Ramirez thought the same thing. Everybody. So, you know.
Triple Single said here, I'm a huge Andre Ward fan, but I remember asking, why didn't the ref give Kovalev a 10 count instead of stopping it immediately? So again, yeah, it's subjective, isn't it?
It is subjective. It is subjective. I mean, Kovalev was trying to say he got hit by low blows. I didn't see anything particularly low. I just thought that Andre Ward was getting on top of him, and Kovalev reverted to the schoolboy bully, didn't he? He was the bully that was used to bullying everyone else. He started to get a bit of his own medicine. He didn't fancy it. That's what it looked like to me. So it's slightly different, that one. But so if you watch that Ramirez fight again, man, that second knockdown in particular, he was out of there. The fight should have been stopped. But somehow Kenny Bayless saw fit to use up so much time and to give Ramirez so much time in which to recover. It was scandalous, to be honest. It really was. What would have happened, Daryl, if I had gone to the cards and that fight would have been a draw? Can you imagine the stink that Josh Taylor would have kicked up, because he would have been denied that stoppage then, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What would have happened?
Javier said here, Canelo gets put double standards. Let's keep the same energy for all fighters. Canelo fought the best at 154, 160. The resume speaks.
No, he didn't fight the best at 154 because he never fought Andre. He never fought Charlo. Same can be said for 160. So I think Javier's. I think he's chatting like a bit of a fanboy here, man.
Big up Javier anyway, man. Good to have you in here. Like, I haven't seen him in the chat before.
He's stretching plausibility a bit too much for my liking. But listen, man, Javier, Canelo is a great fighter. So, you know, we're going to have to agree to disagree on the ducking side of it. But, yeah, he didn't fight the two best guys at 154 and 160. He didn't fight them. He should also really have given Lara a rematch, because a lot of people thought that Lara beat him. And again, I'm not a big fan of rematches unless there's justification for it. Lots of people out there, people who know a lot more about boxing than I do, said that they thought that Lara won that fight. So she should really have rematched Lara.
What about this question here from Rasta Dad? We got to go soon. We'll wrap it up soon, but we'll just answer a couple of questions before we go. Rasta Dad here has said, if Teofimo moves up, who wins with him and Taylor? I know we spoke about this slightly earlier, but let's elaborate again for Rasta Dad. Who do you think actually wins?
I can't see nobody at 140 messing with Taylor right now, man. And that includes Teofimo if he was to move up. I mean, so you'd be asking him to move up from 135. He's fighting smaller guys to fighting a massive 140. And that's the other thing about Josh Taylor. He's very big for the weight.
Yeah.
He's 5'11", isn't he? And he's broad. He's not like he's 5'11" and wiry. He actually looks quite solid in the shoulders and the neck and all that area.
Did you see Teofimo standing next to Conor Benn the other day? He looked just as big as him. He looked big,
he looks thicker, wider. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure Teofimo could move up to 140 because I'm sure he probably struggles to make 135. So in time, a move up to 140, I'm sure Teofimo is going to make. But I'm saying if you're talking right now or in the next year or so, I can't see him beating Josh Taylor at all, no.
Shane Willoughby has said here, what about the Prograis rematch? Because you said no one at 140 you don't think right now could beat him. What about Prograis?
I think that what Josh Taylor will look to do is I think he will want to fight someone like a Jack Catterall in a homecoming fight. And then after that, I think he'll be looking to move up to 147. I think there's nothing left for him to prove at 140. You have the homecoming fight against a guy that you should beat, and let's be honest, beat fairly comfortably in front of your own rabid fans in Scotland. Like I said, it's an England-Scotland thing. And he wins that, which we all expect him to do. Then he can quite easily say, listen, I've done everything at 140. There's new challenges ahead at 147. Maybe not jump straight into a fight with Crawford, but there'll be some welters around at 147 with decent names that he's capable of beating. And because you've got to kind of test your water at the weight. You don't want to go straight up to 147 and take on, especially someone like Crawford, who's a real beast. You know what I mean? You want to dip your toe in the water first and get used to fighting guys a bit stronger, you know what I mean? A bit more robust. So I would imagine that's the route they'll take.
Just a question here, yeah, and what I want to know what you guys in the chat think as well. If Crawford and Taylor fought, you know how Taylor was going on during fight week, man. He weren't having it from no one.
Yeah.
What do you think him and Crawford? Do you think that they'd have that same energy towards each other? There's obviously respect there. You could tell there is, but Taylor, man, would he be like that with Crawford? Would Crawford be like that with him? How would that go, man?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question because, like as I said to you before, they're both badasses, right? But the difference with Crawford is that you kind of have to draw it out of him a bit more than you would with Taylor. Taylor's just in your face. He's just very irascible. He's one of those guys, man, that he'd argue with his own shadow in fight week. Whereas with Crawford, you have to kind of draw it out of him a bit more. He's very macho. He's very alpha male. But he will show a certain level of respect. You know what I mean?
What about Bomac, man?
If you shoved him, like what if he put it this way, if Josh Taylor shoved Crawford like what he did to Ramirez in the hotel lobby the night before, that fight would have started 24 hours earlier. I've got no doubt in my mind. Because you've only got to look back to, remember the weigh-in, I think it was, when Crawford fought Jose Benavidez' brother, Jose Benavidez. And Jose Benavidez pushed him quite violently, didn't he, after the weigh-in? And straight away, Crawford just swung a hook. Fortunately for everybody, it missed. Because can you imagine if he'd have hit Benavidez with that punch and drawn blood, or even worse, decked him or whatever? All sorts of things could have happened. It would not have been nice. So I think Taylor, I mean, listen, he is a badass, but even he's got a brain. He's going to think, no, maybe that's not. Maybe he might look at it like, you know what? Maybe if I show Crawford a bit more respect, that might soften him a little bit, because Crawford's going to be expected. So sometimes you've got to be smart with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know, Josh, man. He's he's a highly testosterone-filled guy, man, and I don't know, man. That could be very interesting. But like you said as well, there seems to be a respect between the two.
Yeah, now. But
yeah.
It'll be interesting. DS,
like I said, if he tried pushing Crawford like that, or going up to Crawford's team like what he was doing to Ramirez's team, and cursing him out and getting in the managers. Can you imagine him doing that to Bomac? Crawford would have been over there. Crawford would have been over there and say, "Listen, man, don't you touch him." You know what I mean? So they might have to be kept apart. If I was a promoter of that fight, I might try and, introduce some security measures that would keep them apart as much as possible, because it could go at any time.
Yeah. Javier said here, you're not a boxing fan if you don't see the legacy Canelo is doing. I ain't got nothing against Canelo. Let me say that. And Laurie,
so what's Javier saying? We're not a boxing fan unless we suck up to all those things that I've accused Canelo of doing. We've already said, haven't we, Darren? I've said that my respect for Canelo as a fighter is total. I'm saying it's the other stuff I'm not keen on. So when he says you are not a boxing fan if you don't see the legacy Canelo is doing, I don't quite know what he's referring to it. If you're placing Canelo beyond reproach, then I would argue that it's you that's not the boxing fan, not us. We're saying he's a great fighter, right? But some of the stuff that goes with Canelo is not good, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's lots of people out there who agree with me on that.
He's also said here, I've got AJ #1 heavyweight. Just look at the resume. So, yeah, it's all down to opinions at the end of the day.
Listen, Canelo's got a very good resume, but there are also fighters that should be on that resume that are not. You know what I mean? I can't put it no more simpler than that.
Francisco has said here, Teofimo is a huge lightweight. He's more of a natural welter. Taylor wouldn't have that much of a size advantage. It'll be a fantastic match. I think it'll be a very good match.
I think it'll be a good match, but I'm not sure. Listen, if you're Josh Taylor, why would you want that fight right now? You've cleaned out the division and then you're going to wait a year whilst, you know what I mean, a young, hungry lion is going to come and challenge you when you can go up north to 147 and seek out better challenge. I mean, that's what Crawford did, didn't he? He unified the division, won all the belts, and then stepped up to welter, and then won welter and won belts up that division. That's what the great fighters are going to want to do.
They might sell that as they might sell that. I know Devin Haney's got the WBC belt, but Teofimo likes to argue that, don't he? They could sell that as 2 undisputed champions fighting each other, even though Haney is technically the WBC lightweight champion.
Well, listen, Josh Taylor actually made a very good point in the lead up to his fight against Ramirez when he was asked about Lopez, and he said, listen, you haven't even cleaned out your division yet. Unify the belts at 135 before you put my name in your mouth. And he was right. You know what I mean?
Shane wants to see the Pro Grey rematch. That's what he wants to see.
I don't think you're going to see that, bro. I don't think you're going to see that. I think Taylor, like I said, I think he'll take the fight with Catterall sometime in the summer or the latter part of this year. And then I think he'll be looking to move up to 147. And why wouldn't he? He's got nothing left to prove. Okay, the Pro Grey fight was a close fight. But in the wider scheme of things, if you're Josh Taylor, you've got nothing left to prove at 140. Surely you're going to want to seek out challenges at 147. He's got the frame for it. He's got the profile for it. He's got the skill set for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Listen, we're going to wrap it up for today anyway, man. We're an hour and a half in. It's Friday night. It's 8:30 over here in the UK. Big up some of the Mexicans we've got here in the chat, man. Javier, I believe you could be Mexican. We've got Francisco in here as well. Big up you guys as well. I'm not sure what time it is over there. And big up everybody in general that's watching the show, man. Don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Share the video on your timelines, wherever. Subscribe to the channel. And thank you as always, guys, for joining us. And we'll be back next week. Laurie, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, man, I just want to say, listen, man, thanks once again for the opportunity of coming on and giving me the opportunity to talk about a sport I love and sharing my passion with you and your viewers. And simply to everyone out there, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, man. Smash the like button.
Smash that like button, man. Big up everybody, man. Have a good evening. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.